Whether you're new to your position or have been in your position for a period of time, setting realistic expectations will be a challenge. It's in your best interest to be actively involved in discussions of your bosses and staff expectations so that you can determine the best methods of prioritizing them and attacking them. How you handle the challenges will go a long way towards ensuring your success. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
We have spoken in past episodes about the challenges of coming into a new position. Once you have been recruited and are on the job, you move to meeting your boss's expectations. In the beginning of your tenure, there's a great deal to learn. For example, you may not have a comprehensive understanding of the organization, its history, the past and current staff, and what it will take to lead the department going forward. That includes the depth of the leadership challenge. Consequently, unrealistic expectations can be set.
Yeah, that's so true, Fred. And as you begin to learn about the organization and the people that you'll be managing, you'll be in a better position to understand and evaluate everyone's expectations. And I would just say right there, it's so critical when you, especially if you're new to a department and have a new staff, that you get to know each of those staff members in terms of what their abilities are, what their work habits are. I know when I took over an organization, the range of abilities and interests and just their ability to get stuff done or not, whether they relied on their suppliers as opposed to what they brought to the party, that took 6 or 8 months really to get a sense, and it meant getting rid of a few people who just weren't doing what needed to be done. Bringing in new people and hiring, as we've talked about, is a full-time job in and of itself. But anyway, in that situation, your boss, obviously your boss's expectations are the ones that are most important. And as you spend time with your staff, they too will have expectations. They're going to be expecting stuff of you, and you need to understand and be aware of that too. I mean, it's not necessarily going to be right out front, and if you start to disappoint them because you don't know what their expectations are or you haven't addressed them, you don't have to meet them necessarily, but be aware of them. That can cause problems too. So then you'll quickly begin to formulate your own expectations for yourself and the department. As you begin to process everyone's expectations, you need to set priorities, and you need to set realistic priorities. You simply can't take on multiple tasks all at once, and it's in your hands, at least to some degree, to evaluate and examine the various needs and determine a priority order to work on them. I mean, your role with your boss is to tackle particularly the boss's most important goals and objectives and clarify their mandate for you and set realistic expectations for yourself and for your department. And if the boss has more than one goal in mind, you've got to negotiate with them to, develop a priority order so that you're taking on things one at a time and not all at once.
We have talked in the past. There can be smaller goals that are, in a sense, low hanging fruit that you can work on fairly quickly and fix. But you may also get that the boss has a more important goal that's going to take time. We've talked in the past about a coaching case that I have where the manager has the challenge of changing the culture from authoritarian to team-oriented, and the manager who was there before was there for years and years, and so that's not an easy fix. That's going to take some time in order to work on that, and the boss needs to understand that is going to take time as you're involved in it. Then if you have been the manager of your department for a period of time, the same logic applies as if you were a new person coming in. Your boss will continue to have goals and expectations. If your boss has been in your position or understands how your department provides value to customers, they may be more reasonable in terms of the projects they'd like you to pursue. Sometimes when we were talking about that low-hanging fruit, one example that I use in coaching is to have a manager look at the policies and procedures that have been in place and listen to staff, and you will undoubtedly find, if they haven't been looked at within the last year, you will undoubtedly find that some of those policies and procedures are clearly out of date, and it will make the staff feel so much better if you get rid of those that don't make sense anymore. However, suppose the boss didn't come from your department, but they came from a different department or role, they may want to stipulate goals, especially if they came in with a mandate from senior management. If your boss was replaced, then they may have been replaced for a specific reason, and senior management may want some things done. So this presents you with a few problems. They may have goals they want accomplished, and they may need education in how your department functions and how its role is carried out and how it works. It's your role to provide the needed education and to help them to understand what can reasonably be carried out. So let's take a look now, Rick, at how you would go about the process by which you handle the expectations.
Well, I think we've sort of started touching on it, but it's, in your initial meetings with your boss, you want to understand not only what you've been asked to accomplish, but why. And that's important because you're going to be bringing about changes in your department, and staff often don't, even if they're in favor of it, it's difficult to implement, as you were just talking about, a different management style, a different approach. Just the going into the department that I mentioned before, one of my mandates or the expectations was it had been a kind of order-taking support group in the company, and I was charged with making it less passive and more active in terms of anticipating needs rather than just reacting to them, and that meant changing everybody's behavior. And you really have to start out by getting as much information as you can about both the history of the problem that you're having to address. It may be as big as that, or it may be a little more specific, but you need to get as much information from your boss as you can. And then if they don't tell you, or if they mention some people you should talk to outside of your department, ask them who else you should be talking to. And definitely you want to get input individually from each member of your team as to how they see the situation and how they see the task or tasks that have been assigned.
Yeah, there's no question that that's really valuable to do that.
Oh yeah, no, you got to get you have to understand their background and their not only their background and their perspective on the issue, but you need to get to understand their working patterns, how they attack things, and whether that's consistent with the objectives that you've been given or not. If it's not, then you got to work with them to bring them in line to where you want to go. And then after you've completed your analysis of the situation, if you will, from input from your team, and then you work out an approach, or you evaluate the approach you thought you had going in, and then you want to present that to your boss with a solution and a plan of action. You want to develop specifically, here's what I'm going to do, and here's the time frame I'm going to do it in, and discuss that. And once the boss approves, then you're ready to move forward. And you want to make sure that you arrange to have regular meetings with your boss, because you want to be able to communicate what you're doing, the problems you're encountering, how you're dealing with them, whether or not you're on schedule, and if not, why not, and what assistance you may need, help you may need to deal with problems you're encountering. And keep in mind that solving an immediate problem provides you with an opportunity to build rapport with staff, to work with the staff, and maybe even resolve a troublesome problem.
Then, together with key members of your staff, you want to establish an action plan with clear steps to completion. Normally, you're going to go to the people who report to you directly, but you want to keep in mind that the people who are right on the front lines, it's critical to talk to, especially if they're the ones that are dealing with the solution that you're going to be working on. The plan must have results that you're willing to commit to with deadlines for completion. Then you want to make sure you establish a system for checking the results against your expectations. People can't stand it if you say that we're going to check results and then you don't come back to check the results. You've got to set the schedule and make sure that you come back. There must also be discussion of the possible constraints that you may face and how you plan to deal with them. So you also have to take responsibility for the decisions that you've made. Each member of your team must be given role clarity and clear expectations, and it's your responsibility to make sure that happen. Time must be given to this exercise since it's so critical to the process. And after discussion, if a few people still don't get it, it may require one-on-one discussions with you to get them on the right track. Not only must your staff understand the process, but your clients, if they will be impacted, must understand what you're doing and how it will help them in the future.
Oh, that's so important that they understand that, because if they don't, they can be a real, even if it doesn't affect them directly, they can be a hindrance.
No question.
And one critical aspect of your work is to determine how often and in what way you'll need to report on progress with your boss. Now, preferably you want to have a weekly face-to-face meeting with your boss so you can help the boss understand what you're doing, the progress that is being made, the problems that you're having, and what you're doing to overcome them. Of course, in today's world, many times your boss is difficult to meet with. They may be unaccessible due to their schedule. They're in another location. All sorts of hindrances. And in that case, you need to figure out a way to still communicate on a regular, and by regular we generally mean weekly basis, what you're doing. This could be an email once a week, just as long as the boss understands and you hold to that schedule. As Fred said, it's so important to have the discipline to communicate, even if it's a couple of sentences. Everything's on track, here's what we did this week, whatever, but make sure the boss understands. But ideally you want face-to-face or at least video screen to video screen interaction where you're sure that they understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the progress is that you've been making. So you need to determine how often communication is needed, but especially with your team, one thing you can bank on, it's going to be more often than you think. And as we've talked about in prior episodes, once a week is optimal.
Rick, as you make that point over and over again, as you know, in our coaching, we talk with the person who we're coaching to make sure that if the manager is not available to them, that they take the responsibility to be communicating with that manager. And since your time is the scarcest and most precious resource, your communication in your staff meetings will help to prevent you from having many individual follow-up meetings. What you need to remember is that the communication that you gave your team at the beginning of the assignment is exactly that, communication to get the project started. Now you must determine how often communication is needed, as Rick said.
And one last thing, you need to be smart as to which problems need to be dealt with immediately. We sort of hinted at this at the beginning, but I think it's worth repeating more directly, and that is, whenever you can, when you're starting out, if you can find a few problems that you can solve quickly, Fred called them low-hanging fruit, you want to get some wins on the board as early as you can, because that's good for your morale, makes you look good, and most important, it makes the staff feel that they're moving the ball ahead. So if you can do that, that's great. But a problem may require immediate attention to prevent damage to your day-to-day operations. There may be something you need to deal with right away, whether it's simple or not, but it has long-term consequences. But beyond that, as you face longer-term projects, if you can focus on an opportunity, especially one that will produce results for the company right away, it may be a great opportunity for you and your department. And when that happens, you want to make sure that you take on projects, well, first of all, one at a time, but put your best people on the biggest opportunities. So in this episode, we've talked about how important it is to manage expectations of your boss, of your staff, and even of yourself. And it's important to communicate what's doable, as well as your plans and progress in achieving goals. And that communication is critical for your success, as well as that of your department. We hope you have found this podcast useful, and will come back again for more Management Mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.